Alright, it's been a minute since I've been here. So I am starting off with the pants. I'm making this Peppermint Loungewear Set pattern, and I didn't choose, my cat chose the shorts version rather than the pants version. I was making it out of this pinkish color. And then she was down here and peed on one of my pants, and I didn't have enough fabric, but I have this color, so I'm going to make the shorts in this color, but I'm still going to use the pink on the pockets because I think that'll be cute, like from the front, to see the pink, have pink pockets, and then the shirt matches that. We'll see. So I'll be putting these pockets on the front of the pants. And that's my first step here. Right side of the pants fabric and the wrong side of the pocket fabric facing up, and I've lined up this edge of the pocket to stitch along, and I will do this for both front sides and repeat the same steps on both sides. I'll be sewing the seam along here, and then on the other side along here, zigzag stitch on the outside as well. This first seam is sewn, so I'll just do a zigzag stitch along to bind in the raw edge. And I will just repeat these steps on the other side. Both sides are sewn. So I'll flip this over and then iron that pocket to the inside with those wrong sides now together, then a top stitch. Alright, so I'm just going to put the shorts front side down and then start to fold that pocket over so that I can iron along here. Okay, so that's the inside of the pocket. Front of the pants or shorts will be here, there'll be a top stitch there, and then on the back side of the pocket you will see the pink. So it should be fun. I'm going to iron the other side. Next step is just doing a top stitch along this pocket on the front of the shorts. So we have one top stitched, and I'll just do the same thing on the other side. The next step is to attach the pocket backing. This is the front of the pants, so this is the little color pocket that will be peeking through. Got the pocket backing pinned to the facing along this edge, so I'm going to sew my seam there and then zigzag stitch around on both sides. Before I do the zigzag stitch around here, I am going to just trim because my seam edge is a little uneven. Okay, zigzag stitch is in. I'll just repeat the steps for this pocket on the other pocket and move on to the next step. Alright, so I've got the back of the pants or shorts. I have the two back panels and the two front panels, and I'm putting right sides together and matching up the outside seam where the pockets are. And that's where I'll be sewing along, is right along here, and that should encase this side of the pocket that's not yet sewn together. So I will pin these two together on both sides from bottom to top, making sure to get all layers of pocket and front side of the pants or shorts, whatever you're doing in there, and then pin it on up, sew it up, zigzag stitch it, boom, let's go. All pinned up and ready to sew the seam, then the zigzag stitch. Alright, my next step is to sew the inner leg together. I've got right sides of the fabric together, and I will line up the inner parts of the legs. Of course, I'm making shorts. If you were making the pants, they would go on a lot longer than this little bit. Inner legs are pinned, ready to sew and zigzag stitch. Alright, it's a new day here, yes. So let's get this going. And zigzag stitch time. So now it's time to attach the two pants together. So I'm going to turn one of these right side around and put that inside, matching up these seams, pin it, and sew it up. All right, I'm going to turn this one right side around. So I'm sticking the one side, this is now right side around, inside the inside out leg, and then matching up this inner seam from center front to center back. I will pin all the way along here and then sew zigzag stitch. Woohoo. Before putting the two pant legs together, or shorts legs together, I am going to be ironing all of the seams. All pinned and ready to sew the seam to attach the two sides of the shorts. And zigzag stitch time. Next, I'm ironing that center seam to one side here. Alright, this center line is ironed. Now my next step is to take my elastic. The instructions say to sew up and connect it. Mine was already sewn because I actually took these off another pair of pants. And then you want to find your four corners. So I used where it is sewn up, that'll be the center back, and then extended it, folded it in half to find the opposite side, and then folded it in half the other way. So I have my kind of four corners. These will line up with the four seams. Next part is pinning the elastic to the shorts. And I've pinned the pockets in place on both sides here so that these don't stretch or fall out while I'm doing this next section. That did not work for me. The thread kept breaking. I asked my husband to help me hold it because I did actually need a couple more arms. So I've decided to sew the casing since this didn't work at all for me. I'm going to zigzag stitch around the edge all the way around and then fold it over to hold the elastic. I did the zigzag stitch all the way around and I had these pockets pinned in place so that those are secure. Then I ironed it in like half an inch. I hope I'm not taking too much off the waist by doing that, but I'm then going to make the casing from here for the elastic, and basically I think iron it and sew it with the elastic already in there because I have it already sewn. I don't know if that'll work, but I'm gonna see. I have the waistband ironed all the way around to fit in the elastic throughout. So now I'm going to tuck the elastic in and start to sew all the way around. I've pinned the elastic under here in the four seam lines, and then I'm just going to sew below the elastic along the whole thing with this little folded in underneath below the elastic, if that makes sense. And I will just scrunch this along as I go. I'm just planning to use my hand to make sure I'm not sewing over the elastic as I go, and sewing down the folded fabric so that the inside edge is nice. And this is the wrong side of the fabric here, and we'll bring it into the light. It seems to have worked. I did end up in the back just sewing up the seam a little bit to secure the elastic in place so it doesn't flip around so much. Now I'll turn it right side around, but that did work to encase it with the elastic already in a loop. So last step on the shorts is just to hem them up. So I'll zigzag stitch along both of them and then fold a 2 inch 5 centimeter single hem in and just top stitch all the way around that. So we'll start off with the zigzag stitch. Maybe I'll clean up some of the edges before I start the zigzag stitch. Alright, I've done the zigzag stitch on both legs and then hemmed with a 2-inch, I've ironed it. So next up, and our last step on these shorts is just to do a straight stitch on the top. So I'm going to flip this right side around and then sew it up. Since the hem is really wide, I made a little pencil mark on my sewing machine that I can follow to try and keep the hem and the seam even. And the bottom hem is complete. That little 2-inch seam onto the shirt. First step for the loungewear shirt is to pin the 2 shoulder seams together, right sides of the fabric together, and we'll do the straight stitch first and then zigzag stitch to finish off the raw edge. Alright, zigzag stitch is on, just repeat that on the other side. This is the neck facing, so this is the front and the back, so I have right sides together, and I'll be sewing straight stitch across and then zigzag stitch to overlock on both sides. And since that's just the same as it always is, straight stitch then zigzag stitch, I'll show you when it's done. Now that I've got these seams sewn and the ones on the shoulders, I am going to go to the iron and press them all towards the back. Okay, those seams have been ironed. Now the next step is to go around and zigzag stitch or overlock around the outside of this piece. And the outside has been zigzag stitched all the way around. My next step here, I am pinning right sides together, the facing to the neckline, and then I will sew a 3/8 of an inch seam around the whole thing. So I'm just coming around here and pinning it. We are pinned and ready to sew. That's all sewed on now. So now I will go iron this to the inside to prep it for the top stitch on the outside at 2 inches. I pinned the facing so that it's now right side round, so wrong sides are together, and I'm just going through and ironing. Alright, I have top stitched all the way around the neck hole. In my next step here, I've got right sides together, and I will be pinning and sewing up the side seam of the shirt. I'll be doing that straight stitch first and then zigzag stitch to bind them, and repeating that on both sides. Okay, I've got the 2 side seams pinned up here and ready to sew. So I've done the straight stitch, doing the zigzag stitch all the way around. Zigzag stitch has been added, so I will just repeat these steps on the other side. Both side seams are hemmed, so now I'm going to iron the seam towards the back. Alright, I've got my sleeves here. Next step is to zigzag stitch or over stitch along the outside of it before turning it in and doing a top stitch. So just finishing off both of the raw edges here with that zigzag stitch. Alright, I got bangs since last I did this angle. Here we go, zigzag stitching along the outside of the armholes. That zigzag stitch is stitched, and so now I will be folding it up onto the wrong side of the fabric, 2 centimeters or 0.8 inches, and then I'll turn it right side around after pinning and ironing it and do a top stitch on the right side of the fabric. I have folded over that 0.8 inch or 2 centimeters and pinned and ironed around both of these armholes. So now I will flip it right side around, because right now it's inside out, and top stitch the seam on both armholes. Headed in for that top stitch here. And I'm just gonna head to the other side now. I've got both of the sleeves top stitched. I think it looks really nice. So now I'm just doing the same thing to the bottom. First, I will zigzag stitch or overlock all around, and then do that same 0.8 of an inch or 2 centimeter fold, and then top stitch. And before I do that, I think I'm just gonna re-iron this because it's a little wrinkly and I think it makes the process a little trickier. So let's get a crisp shirt and then I'll zigzag stitch. Heading into the zigzag stitch here. I've got the bottom of the bodice folded up for the hem, and I'm going to iron it. It's 2 centimeters or 0.8 inches, and I will iron it and then flip it right side around and top stitch on the outside to finish up the top. All right, so here is the final little lounge outfit. It is very roomy, which I love. I still might like make it the top a size smaller if I were to do it again, but it is really comfortable. And here's a little pocket detail of the pink, and these are good roomy pockets too. So, and reusing the elastic from another pair of pants that were worn out, I thought was like really great and helpful. So I'd still like to make the pants in the matching pink, but I love this shorts option. So here's the little hi Cersei. Hi Cersei. So yeah, it came together faster than I thought. Oh, also because I was doing the zigzag stitch rather than French seams, which I normally do. And French seams are neater. This is faster. And I'll just check over time to see like how it holds up. Is this just as resilient, or should I get a serger? Have a good week, or until I see you next. Aye aye, Captain. Thanks for joining on this video. Kiss a cat. Let her know that you love her. Okay. Ready to lounge. Ready to lounge. Oh, what are you doing? Just lounging in my loungewear. What are you doing? All right. See ya.